This is the China-Hollywood Greenlight podcast, episode number 5.
And rolling sound, quiet.
Here we go. Ready.
Speeding. 120, take 7.
And action.
This is Karen McCann, the host of the China-Hollywood Greenlight podcast, which is a podcast about creating and distributing content for both Hollywood and China. If you like the show, please go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a rating so other people can find the podcast. The more we work together, the more opportunities will be out there for everyone. Any links mentioned in the podcast can be found in the show notes at www.chinahollywoodgreenlight.com/podcast and look for episode number 5. Before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to start out with a motivational quote to encourage our listeners to continue on their path to achieve their own green light. And today's quote comes from Sarah Ban Breathnach, and she said, "The world needs dreamers, the world needs doers, but above all, the world needs dreamers who do." And today's guest is Charles Morris, who is the Vice President of Development and Acquisitions of Global Genesis Group. His company has made inroads in China, and he'll tell you how. Here is the interview. Charles Morris is the Vice President of Development and Acquisitions at Global Genesis Group. The company's core business is the production and distribution of television IPs, feature films, and documentaries, as well as creating and developing its own original IP to generate global branding. Global Genesis Group is a full-service production, distribution, and IP management company. The company has made inroads in China. For example, its animation film, Troll Tale of the Tale, was co-financed with a Chinese partner. Additionally, another animation project, The Moomins and the Winter Wonderland, has secured distribution in China. The Moomins is based on a Finnish book series that launched a Japanese-Finnish-Dutch TV series in the late 70s. This year's China deal marks the first time in 87 years that the Moomins brand will have a theatrical release in China. So welcome, Charles, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Great. Well, I've told the audience a little bit about you, but why don't you tell us more about yourself and your business?
So yes, as you said, I'm Charles Morris Jr. I'm the VP of Acquisitions and Development for Global Genesis Group. We are a fairly new company. We've been around for 5 years now. We are a production and distribution company. So like we tell people, we're a 360 company in a sense that we can start things from inception to development to script to production to post-production, and finally to distribution. We are worldwide distributors. We go to all the markets and exhibit. We were just in Toronto. We'll be in MIPCon and Cannes in a couple weeks, and then we'll have a room at AFM in November. So that's who we are. And we also we have offices in Los Angeles and Henderson, Nevada, which is just outside of Las Vegas. Global Genesis Group is the parent company. We have the entertainment division in Los Angeles. In Las Vegas, we also have Galaxy Post Labs. It's a post-production facility. They're a subsidiary of us. We have Dynamic Transmedia, which is our social media marketing branch. And also, we just opened Global Management Associates, which is our management company that so we're taking on directors and writers and some actors.
Wow. How new is that global management company?
There was an article in Deadline. It was about 6 weeks ago that we just. So
Great.
it's very new.
Wow.
We have a couple up and coming directors attached, and then we're repping them, and so we're open to talking to people and getting submissions and signing people in management.
Wow, you wear many hats.
We try, yeah, yes, we're working on that.
Oh, great. Well, shall we start with the questions? I know that no 2 days are the same in this business, but just so some of our audience, some of them are established, some of them are new. Tell us a little bit about your day. Like, what are 2 or 3 main tasks you do on a typical day?
Uh, well, I usually don't have very typical days.
Yeah.
Like right now, for example, my our executive vice president is in Beijing. We're actually shooting the live action bookends for Troll.
Oh, right.
So just to go back, and I'll get back to your question.
Uh-huh.
So we got the script of Troll about 2 years ago. They'd been trying. It was a Scandinavian Canadian co-production that they'd been trying to make for about 8 years at that time. We got the script. We made some changes. We actually got it to our Chinese partner, and they were very interested. They wanted to make it Chinese centric, and so we added bookends like a Princess Bride. So the Chinese grandfather goes in to read a book to his Chinese grandson, and they open up the book, and then we go into the animated world of Troll. And so right now, Kevin Monroe who's directing, and Kevin did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the animated movie, about 8 years ago, and he just came out with Ratchet and Clank last year. So he's a very accomplished animated and live action director. So I've seen the footage, and I mean, it looks amazing. The shots look like a Spielberg film. So we have, huge hopes for that. So getting back to what I do is, I've been talking to my boss, who's been calling me on WeChat from China, and we're trying to do as much business as we can while he's over there shooting that. But on a daily basis, my job, I mean, it's divided into acquisitions, development, and production. So I'm looking at new TV and film projects for acquisition. So I'm either reading scripts, I'm watching trailers or watching screeners, and that's for worldwide distribution. And then I'm always talking to producers as far as the projects we have in development. We have a dozen or so projects in development, TV series, feature films. And so, we're giving script notes, we're talking about casting, we're talking about locations. And finally, as you said, when you introed us, I mean, we develop our own intellectual properties. So at sometimes, we're writing and whether we're doing synopses or treatments or working on scripts. So, every day is kind of different because it depends on, what the focus is for today, whether it's acquiring something for distribution or the projects we have in development or pre-production or production.
You mentioned you got this project going on in Beijing right now. How did you find your Chinese partner, and how do you suggest the listeners find a Chinese partner?
Well, we got introduced to a gentleman that he's an American citizen, but he's Chinese, and so he's a producer. He's worked in the industry a long time. He's an actor, and he's the one that introduced us to. I mean, Spring Era Films is our partner on Troll, and they're also the ones that are distributing Moomins in China, for the theatrical. And so it was. I mean, this business is all relationships, and so people we had worked with a long time said that. This gentleman was looking for partners and projects, and so we contacted him. And it's just about starting relationships and taking meetings, and we met in offices in Los Angeles. We've been to China. We were at the Beijing Film Festival, introducing Trolls. So, our president Rick Romano was there, Kevin Monroe, the director, and that was a big. The banner on the stage, is like a 50-foot long banner with our movie on it. So it was a pretty big intro of what we're doing. And so on top of it, shooting in China with actual Chinese actors is just going to enhance the project.
Was this just this middleman, if you want to call it, American Chinese actor? Is he with Spring Era Films, or is he sort of like?
No, he's a freelancer. I mean, he works with us. He works with other Chinese companies. So, but he has a good relationship with. It's not like, we run across a lot of people that are talking to people and saying, hey, we have Chinese financing, and it's about to get finalized and such, and so in our case, I mean, we had to basically find and start a relationship with an actual Chinese producer that he flies to Beijing and he goes to the companies and he sits in the meetings, and it's not just phone calls over here. It's I mean, he's actually there, and he's very well respected over there. So and then of course, now that we've been over there a couple of times, and so now we have that personal relationship with the companies over there, and Spring Era is just one company. I mean, we're doing in early 2018, we're going to be shooting a movie for another Chinese production company, and we're going to be basically providing the production services. So it's not going to be our film. But they're going to be shooting it here in America, and we will be. So, and that's a completely separate company, and that deal should be announced, in the next month or so. But basically because of one relationship, it opened up. It opened it up to other relationships, and they see that how we're doing business and how we get things done. If we say we're going to do something, we accomplish that, and that's impressed our Chinese partners, and the word has gotten around, so other Chinese production companies are now in contact with us and talking to us.
Well, like you said, once that door opens, other companies, especially Chinese companies, hear about you and contact you. But before you even get the door open, it's just kind of like meeting so many people. You got to just met the right person.
We met the right person. Yes.
Yeah, that's all. You got to go out there and meet people.
I mean, we go to all the markets, and actually we just signed a big IP out of England called 12 Guardians, and so it's an animated project. It's like a trilogy. It's a beautiful, and it has a lot of Chinese. I mean, it basically takes place in China, so it has a lot of kind of background to the whole Asian culture and the whole Chinese culture, and so that is something that we're going to be doing in China also. So we are in development with that, but that just came about because we are at the Cannes Film Festival at our booth. I mean, we had Axel and the Adventures of the Space Kids, which is a Chinese animated feature that we're worldwide distributors on, and Axel was done by Versatile Media in China. So, that's coming out this fall. And so besides Moomins, and so the gentlemen's Robert and Steve of 12 Guardians, walked by and they saw this big poster about Axel, and they saw Versatile Media. They knew it was a Chinese company, and they said, "Hey, so you have this relationship with Versatile?" And we said yes, and they said, "Yeah, we have this animated feature that takes place in China," and so our relationship with China is helping build not only with more relationships with China, but with other producers around the world that also want to get in the door in China.
That's perfect. And success breeds success. So congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Now tell me, on the flip side of success, what obstacles did you encounter on a past project, and what did you learn from it?
Well, the biggest obstacle is always financing. It's always getting the money. Look, there we meet people all the time, and great creators and great producers, and there's a ton of great ideas out there, and there's very creative people. But just because you have a great idea and a great script and maybe even actors attached doesn't mean you're going to get a movie made, because somebody has to pay for it. And so it's a matter of, it's like putting a puzzle together. You got to find the right people at the right time who want to invest in something and invest in the thing that you're pushing at them. So I mean, we've recently had a project that everything looks like it's going forward, and all the contracts are signed, and then things happen, and the money never arrives, and so then you just have to kind of move on and push forward.
How did you push forward? How did you solve that problem?
Well, then you go find other people. You go find other investors, and you have to start the process over. I mean, it's all about perseverance. I mean, you can't give up. I mean, you just have to, if one door closes, you have to find another door that opens, and that you might have to knock on 20 doors. But, this business is about perseverance. I mean, that's, like I said, there's tons of talented people out there that aren't getting projects done and completed, but you have to just keep knocking on the doors and keep pushing through obstacles. And there's always a way to do it. It's just a matter of finding the way that fits at that moment and at that time.
So the obstacle is finding financing, and sometimes it drops out. And so the solution you found, obviously, is you have to be perseverant. You have to knock on many doors, and that helps that you have so many good relations, that you have a track record, so you can go to other people to find financing. Is that correct?
That's exactly it.
Okay. Speaking of financing and other pain points, if you could magically solve 2 pain points, what would they be? Just like that.
Well, yeah, 2 pain points, I guess, is in this industry you're dealing with a lot of people and a lot of creative people, and people have egos, and so you not only have to get people to buy into what you bring to the project and what our company can bring to the project, but even Spielberg doesn't walk onto a movie set and get 100% of his ideas through. I mean, he has to get a movie financed. I mean, they have to have a script. The people that finance the movie, the studio, whoever's distributing, everybody has notes. So it's not like even the most talented people, the biggest people in this industry, can just walk in and do something 100% their way, unless somebody has all the money and they wrote the script and they're going to self-distribute. Then you can make all your decisions. But once you bring another person or another company or into that mix, then it becomes a collaborative process. And once it's a collaborative process, there's a lot of egos that need to be soothed, and I mean, compromise is a big thing here, and so it's a way to be tactful. It's a way to understand where people's creative energies are being spent, and if you have to divert them in a direction that makes more sense. We come at it in a lot of sense, from two different viewpoints. I mean, we're filmmakers, so we could look at something creatively. Yeah, we're also a distribution company, so we have to sell it. And I mean, those are a lot of conversations I have with people. It's like, look, I mean, we could do it like this, and it'll be the best festival movie ever, and it's going to go to all these indie festivals, and all the people that love indie films and going and watching festivals are going to say this is the best movie ever. And then you try to distribute it and sell it to, a worldwide market, and it doesn't have the same, effect because people, um, basically around the world might have, might like things more genre oriented. They might like things, and so yeah, I mean, there's a fine line and a fine balance between being artistic and being creative, and also doing something that's saleable and marketable. And so sometimes those things clash, and so it's one of the it's a balancing act, and it is a pain point to try and say, hey, you have a very beautiful movie, but if we do things a little differently, we could make it more marketable. And so you might lose a little bit of your artistic expression in a sense, but it's a compromise. It's like, you could make a 75% artistic movie, but give us a little bit so we could sell it around the world. And then, of course, going back to what I said earlier, it's yeah. I mean, if I could snap my fingers and we could have endless amounts of financing, it would make things very easy, and we could have all these things that we want to get into production and I mean, that would solve a lot of issues
Right.
if you didn't have to kind of work on bringing in the financing as hard as you have to.
So it sounds like one of the big pain points is, you have to compromise with people with egos, and plus the artistic side, the creative side versus the sales and marketing side. And then the second thing, of course, would be the financing.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But you got this huge advantage over so many companies with, I feel, this Chinese connection. Now people are seeking you out, so you're the belle of the ball.
When people are putting us on that higher level, I mean, we're still striving to get up to a really good level that people know who Global Genesis is, and they know we get things done, and they know we make quality movies and also fun movies that with Troll, it's a beautiful movie. I mean, Kevin Monroe, the director, I mean, he's brought in people that have worked on Shrek, on Madagascar, so to get that kind of quality of people working on this thing, it's a hard business. I mean, our animated movie is going to be, we're competing against Pixar, we're competing against Disney and DreamWorks. I mean, it's not like, when we go out into the theaters, people are going to say, hey, this is an indie movie and they didn't have as, $150 million to make it. I mean, you still walk into the theater and you make a choice to go see Troll, A Tale of a Tale, or a huge studio picture. And so when you're competing against the big boys, I mean, you gotta do the best you can, and you gotta make it the best you can, and it's got to be at that same level.
Exactly. Now, so what sort of projects are you looking for, like in the future, for film, TV, genre, budget range?
I mean, we have things in production. I mean, in development and production and pre-production. I mean, we have a World War I drama that's probably around a $10 to $15 million movie with a young Belgium director. We have a horror movie with Tom Sizemore attached to it, which will be more of an indie, lower budget. We have two of these animated projects that we're working with in China. As I said, 12 Guardians and something called Moondog. It's an amazing project. It's like the Jungle Book in a sense. It's about it takes place in the Himalayan mountains, and there's a young girl and a young boy, and a wolf cub gets orphaned, and the young girl adopts it and raises it as a dog, and at the same time, the young boy gets lost in an avalanche, and the wolf mother that lost the wolf cub raises the young boy as a wolf, and so the stories kind of parallel. As as the girl raises her wolf cub, and as the wolf raises the young boy, and until they all meet together as teenagers, and so it's a pretty amazing script, and so we're very excited to get that into pre-production here.
So you've got a period piece, I mean, among many, the period piece, the horror, animation projects with connections to China. Have you heard? I mean, you've got these great relationships with these Chinese companies. Have they given you any insight as to what they might be looking for? The Chinese companies.
Right now, a lot of it is it's been in the news that not as much money is leaving China to come to productions in the United States. That a lot of Chinese companies want to film things in China, and so. Those are the kind of projects that we're talking to them about, whether we have a script that can be adapted to, if it takes place like in Cabo San Lucas at a resort, then why can't we put it on, an island off of China or something like that? Those are the conversations we have. We have a creature feature called Hogzilla that takes place in the South, but we're supposedly in Hong Kong they had problems with these giant wild boars, and so now I mean, what's the difference if we have giant wild boars in Arkansas, or if we have them in Hong Kong or some rural city in China, and so those are the kind of things that we're talking to them about.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds great. I look forward to reading stuff in the trades about that. Now, this next question, what I wanted to ask is, if you could do your career over again, what would you do differently?
I graduated from the USC Film School, quite a bit ago, and I kind of, as I'm talking about creators and such with egos, I mean, I had more of an ego at that time when I was younger, and I kind of wanted to do it my way. I didn't think networking was, the way to go. That I was a screenwriter, and that someone was going to read my stuff and say I was the greatest writer that had come into Hollywood. And so it's just
of course
we all
think like that.
And so I didn't I just submitted to a lot of places, and I didn't really knock on doors. I didn't I had an opportunity at one time to be a PA. I think on I forget if it was Moonlighting or 30 something or a show a long time ago, and I was like, I'm not going to get paid $200 a week to go get people's coffee, and but that was the attitude I had, and it was it's the complete opposite attitude of what I should have had. I should have been dying to be working on a set and bringing people coffee, and I would have worked my way up from being a PA on a TV series, but again, I thought that someone would just read something of mine and send the limo to my door, and Hollywood would open up to me, and but it's what I said earlier about doing anything. It's all about perseverance, and if there's nothing else I really wanted to do with my life, and as far as a career. So, it was a matter of finding out what didn't work and doing something different.
That's it's true for all of us. I mean, we all went to school and got out and thought exactly the same way. So I completely understand. Now, what skills do you need to be effective at development and acquisitions?
I mean, you have to be open-minded. You have to be able to read things and look at things and kind of also see, where people are taking their creative vision and why they're making the decisions, even though there might be different decisions than you would make. So, I mean, going to film school, I had a great background in watching movies, movie history, and just reading a lot of scripts, and especially as a writer, to be able to take critique from people and to listen to what's not working and to listen to why your choices were wrong and to move beyond that and to try and force yourself and push yourself to do better. So, if I can take critique and I can take criticism, then you hope you find people that can also
Right.
do that. But I mean, you have to be tactful. I mean, you can't just tell somebody, "Hey, this really sucks." I mean, there's good in anything. I mean, not anybody can sit down and write a 90-page or 100-page script. And so you have to give people props for the effort, and there's always good. There's always good in something. I mean, whether the idea is good, whether some characters are good, whether the dialogue is good, and so you focus on the good and you try to say, "Hey, this is really working, and this as well. These are the issues I have problems with, and these are the things that we need to work on." But it's
You have a great attitude. I think a lot of writers and directors are now going to be sending you their CVs. They're going to be wanting they're wanting you to manage them real fast.
Well, it's what we say. I mean,
Yeah.
when we get submissions for the independent movies for distribution, that people spend 25,000 or 50,000, and hey, maybe the sound isn't as great as it should be, or maybe some of the acting isn't as good. I mean, but I mean, for somebody to go out and make a movie and make a feature film is a hard thing to do, and to accomplish it, even if it's not as polished as it could be, you have to give people props, and you have to, look for the good and compliment the good, and but even beyond that, if you are in development, if people are sending you scripts and stuff, there's always things that can be changed. It's harder to change a completed movie if there's no more money and no more time and
Right.
to redo things. But when people have ideas and or scripts, I mean, at that point, it's an open book, and you focus on the good and you tweak the stuff that needs to be worked on.
Well, good attitude. Now, this next question is a little tricky. What question did I not ask you that I should have?
I don't know. It seems like I got asked good questions.
How do you relieve your stress?
I there's a couple ways. I go to church. I have a lot of friends at church, so we talk about things on a spiritual level, and then I go to the gym and I run, and it's a lot of quiet time, but that gives me time to think about the things that we're working on and the things that need to be accomplished and the things that we have to get done.
Excellent.
And
That's an excellent answer. So let me anything else you would like to add to that?
Well, and I have a beautiful wife and kids, and so I try to spend family time too. And I mean, those are priorities. I mean, you can get lost in this business, and you could work. I mean, my boss, I mean, he never sleeps. I mean, he'll be calling China at 2 in the morning, and he'll wake up at 6 to start calling Europe, and
wow.
and it's just one of those things that you know, it's not a 9 to 5 job. It's
Yes.
so you have to be able to kind of separate and say, hey, you know, I'm working really hard, but you know, at this point in time, I'm going to spend time with my family, or you know, I'm going to wake up early and go to the gym and focus on myself for a little bit. But you know, you can't just do this. I mean, we do it 24/7, but there has to be times in the day that you know, focus on family, or as I said, church, or going to the gym.
I think you're going to have, like, every writer and director in LA is going to be wanting you to manage them. So good,
Well,
good for
we,
you. Yeah, you're going to
we
get
want
a lot of
we
submissions now.
all this business is all relationships. It's
That's
all
right.
it's.
That's right.
As I told a young director the other day, it was like, look, not only do we want to, you know, distribute your movie and give you notes and help make it, you know, the best it can be, but it's not about this movie right now. We just don't take things on as you know, a one-off in a sense. It's about, you know, what are the next 5 movies you're going to do, and how can we help you do that, whether it's co-financing or co-producing and distributing. So, you know, there's talented people, and if you make relationships with those people, then I mean, everybody wins.
Yeah. Yes. I like that. That's great. Now, my last question is this. What advice would you give those aspiring to tap into the Chinese market?
Well, it's like it's the same advice in anything in this industry. It's just perseverance. I mean, you just can't give up. I mean, you have to find the right people. And there's a lot of talk. I mean, you know, everybody, and I'm not just talking about China, but everybody in this business has $100 million hedge fund that they can tap into, except no one ever taps into that $100 million hedge fund. Just like we've met a lot of people that say, hey, I'm working with this Chinese production company, you know, they're about to finance my movie. And, you know, I'll see them at the same market a year later, and they're still waiting for the movie to be financed. It's you know, everybody's all talk until you find people that aren't all talk. And so you have to find the people in action and the people that can go and say, hey, you know, this is a good project, and I'm going to get it to, you know, my people in China, and if they like it, they're going to move on it, and so you just have to find those kind of people.
Well, yes, completely. I agree. Charles, thank you so much for coming
Sure.
on my podcast. You've given
Anytime.
you've given the audience some great advice, some great stories. And I wanted just to say thank you again for joining us today. It was excellent.
Well, thank you for having me.
Great. We'll see you at the premiere.
Okay, great. Thank you.
First, let me say I was so caught up in Charles's honesty about how you can get lost in this business and that you need to separate your work from your home life. And he so eloquently talked about his church, his beautiful wife and kids, that I totally forgot to ask him for any social media handles and any websites he'd like to share. My bad, Charles. So I emailed him later, and they'll be in the show notes. But basically, his company Facebook is www.facebook.com/Global Genesis Group. And then for his social media, he's got his own page on Facebook, which is www.facebook.com/Charles Morris Jr. And I'll put his LinkedIn address in the show notes. And now for my key points and takeaways. I'll start with my 3 key points, as always. Number 1, they have a new talent division, Global Management Associates. It's an agency for directors, writers, and some actors. Number 2, business is all about relationships. His Chinese partner may live in Los Angeles, but he flies to Beijing for meetings. It's not just about making phone calls. You need face-to-face time. And number 3, His company's successful track record in China has not only attracted more Chinese partners, but also American partners who want to do business in China. The key is to have a track record. Now, as far as my takeaways, I have 3. Number 1, we've all read in the news that not as much money is leaving China to do production in the U.S. Chinese companies want to film in China. He mentioned that they are adapting some U.S.-based scripts to be shot in China. However, in my opinion, this is a balancing act because you can't just change the location and names. You need to appeal to the Chinese audience. So one idea I have is if you adapt your screenplay to be shot in China, find a Chinese reader who can give you some feedback. But as Charles said, more and more Chinese companies are looking to film in China, not the U.S. Number 2, regarding if Charles could do his career over again, he didn't back then think networking was the way to go. He didn't really knock on too many doors. So this is especially a good lesson for writers because the stereotypical writer is more comfortable working alone and may not be a social butterfly, but networking is key. And number 3, as I mentioned a minute ago, Charles said you can get lost in this business. You need to have a life. You need to separate your work life and your home life. And now for the episodic part of my podcast. This is where I update you on my progress with my journey to getting my own China-Hollywood Greenlight. And I have 5 new items. 1, I connected with a group called Chinese in Entertainment and will attend the LA Chinese Film Festival this weekend, where I hope to meet like-minded folks in the China-Hollywood space. Number 2, I added an ebook, How to Find a Chinese Writing Partner, to my website, which is www.chinahollywoodgreenlight.com. Number 3, I had great meetings at the AFM and several companies requested my scripts. As mentioned last week, some production companies want me to change my China-German co-pro into a China-Canadian co-pro, so I'm rewriting that now, and we'll see which version wins the race. Number 4, I'm also rewriting my China-Korea co-pro as a China-Japan co-pro to get in early on the new co-production treaty between China and Japan. And number 5, as I mentioned last week, a director is reading one of my scripts. He happens to have access to a Chinese film fund, so I'll update you as I get the next bit of news. Other than that, I'm having a great time interviewing such interesting folks in the China-Hollywood space. I'm learning a lot, and I hope you are too. And if you'd like to join the podcast or would like to recommend a guest, send me an email at podcast@chinahollywoodgreenlight.com. Thank you for listening to my podcast. To show your support, please go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a rating so other people can find the podcast. The more we work together, the more opportunities will be out there for everyone. And I'll see you at the premiere. See you soon. 一会儿见.